Over a period of 8 months, lawyers verified all the allegations made in this film. However, just before broadcast, a second letter from Smithfield Foods of America threatened legal action, and the broadcaster withdrew the film. For the next stage, a barrister took over and spent 5 months making precautionary cuts, and was fully prepared to defend it in a British court. The film was aired. Smithfield has not sued. This original uncut version of the film could have been shown in America. However, sections had to be removed from the UK broadcast version in fear of the UK's corporate-friendly libel laws. These are highlighted with this logo.
Witam pana. Dzień dobry.
Panie uprzejmie zapytujemy, kiedy pan minister opracuje normy zanieczyszczeń dla środowiska odnośnie zanieczyszczeń gazami, odorami?
Można wyciągnąć
Ustawa antydrogowa powstaje.
na 3 lata, tak jak pan
Ja powiedziałem, że...
Could you please tell us what are your concerns?
Pierwszy problem to jest koncentracja przemysłu szkodliwego dla środowiska, a więc przemysłowe fermy tuczu, zakłady utylizacyjne.
Ja chcę czyste powietrze, żeby nie śmierdziało, żeby moja wnusia żyła w czystym powietrzu, zdrowo, tak? Żeby mogła żyć naprawdę zgodnie z przyrodą i żeby nie było korupcji, wszystkiego, tylko nie korupcji.
I'm Tracy Worcester, and I've lived in the countryside most of my life. But whether it's in Britain or abroad, I've seen small family farms going bankrupt because of the arrival of giant factory farms. For years, I've campaigned against the destruction of rural livelihoods and to improve animal welfare. This film is the story of my 4-year investigation into the global pig business. A journey that goes from the UK to the USA, from South America to Poland, to find out where the pork was produced, how it was produced, and who suffered in the process. So, baby, what do you think of his bacon?
Bacon's good, but
Bacon's good.
is it from the same place?
Yeah.
Farmers Market, yeah.
So, where's the pork? I think the pork's down here.
This is what I used to love when I was a child. You never used to buy it for me.
Where's it being made?
Produced in the EU.
Well, the EU, I mean, where in the EU? What about these low-value ones? Where are they produced?
Produced in the EU again.
Produced in the EU? Where in the EU? I want to buy pig meat produced to high animal welfare standards. And the UK has some of the highest in Europe. But because the law doesn't require companies to put country of origin on their label, I have no idea where the meat comes from or the conditions in which the pigs live. But at a local farmer's market, it's quite a different story.
2 bacon rolls, please. Yes.
They know the quality of the product because we have a direct relationship with our customers. If they don't like what we sell them, they'll come back next week and tell us.
For stallholder Mike King, the secret of producing top-quality pork lies in the humane treatment of his animals.
I think pigs, they're such intelligent, sort of inquisitive animals. They need to be active all day long, searching for roots and grubs and things like that. Whereas pigs in concrete boxes, they've got nothing to do all day long. They're totally bored. It's one of the reasons why I left that more intensive farming and decided to keep them like this.
The intensive farming Mike referred to was pioneered in America, and it's the way most supermarket pork is produced. Tom Garrett has been campaigning against intensive livestock production ever since it begun. Early in my investigation, I met up with him.
What we have, I think, is the application of industrial systems that were designed to build cars and build machines to living creatures.
It's infinitely cruel in my mind, and no civilized society, whatever civilized society means, ought to countenance it. Sows, for example, are subjected to confinement in a very narrow cage, so narrow they can't even turn around during gestation.
Workers in these installations cease to regard the animals even as alive, I think. They become habituated to cruelty, and eventually they become genuinely brutalized.
Such cruelty is not unusual when pigs are seen not as animals but as an industrial raw material. But I believe industrial farming is also bad for our food, our health, and the livelihoods of rural communities.
It's the way they get rid of their waste that's really most problematic. The hogs dump their feces and urine on the floor. It goes under the hog house out to a lagoon, and then they slop it on the fields. And then it runs off into these drain pipes they have underneath the fields. It runs off into the ditches, and it goes right down to our streams, creeks, and rivers. And it's full of nitrogen. It's basically untreated waste.
When it's spring, it just cuts your breath off. And you get like phlegm in your throat, your eyes start running, you know, and you just get a headache, you know, and you just really almost, I guess, just get angry because you can't breathe.
They came out and tested my water, and in a couple of days, I got a letter telling me not to drink my water, don't bath in my water, don't cook with it. There's flies on the side of the house, all around the doors, all around the windows, great big flies. It's nothing unusual for anybody's home to have flies, but these are real big flies, big greasy-looking flies.
There are 10 million hogs in this small area, and those 10 million hogs are producing more fecal waste each and every day than 100 million people. That means if all the waste from the people of Poland and Great Britain, the fecal waste, were collected each and every day and then stored in lagoons and slopped on fields, that'll give you some idea of how much waste we're dealing with here in eastern North Carolina.
30 years ago, manure was spread naturally on the land as pigs were raised outside on tens of thousands of independent hog farms. However, the Freedom to Farm Act in 1996 ended minimum prices for farm produce, enabling large-scale agribusiness to dictate prices and undercut small farmers.
Stop freedom to farm! Stop freedom to farm! Stop freedom to farm!
Food has become a major profit-generating commodity and has spread onto a global playing field where food producers, workers, and consumers are reduced to pawns manipulated by giant corporations. And we need to name names. We're talking about Cargill, ConAgra, ADM, IBP, Monsanto, Smithfield, and Tyson.
What Smithfield does is it makes itself rich by making everybody else poor. And it does this by capturing monopoly control, by controlling corrupting government officials, capturing monopoly control, and eliminating competition and free markets.
Of all the pork companies, Smithfield Foods of America is the world's largest. It processes 27 million pigs a year. It operates in 15 countries, employs over 52,000 people, and its annual sales are almost $12 billion.
Smithfield Foods was a sort of regional piranha in the state of Virginia for many years. And then in 1992, the CEO, Joe Luter, made his big move and built the largest slaughterhouse in the world, which actually takes over almost 300 hectares in Bladen County on the Cape Fear River. And with that, hog raising absolutely exploded, and Smithfield went from being a piranha to a shark.
In 2008, I went to North Carolina to see Smithfield Foods operations at their Tar Heel packing plant. 32,000 pigs a day are killed. It's a noisy, dangerous place to work.
The workers have to work under extreme colds, extreme heats for long periods of time, working on the line with knives and equipment, and a lot of them are getting hurt. I mean, recently, just last week, a worker had his arm ripped off. We have people that are getting their fingers amputated by the machinery and the knives and stuff.
Right on. They done got away with this stuff long enough. It's time for something to happen, God don't want the workers to be treated that way, because that ain't right. I see them people mistreating what they go through. I mean, that ain't right. That thing worse than slavery sometimes. I mean, the way them people work and the way they be treated. It is real rough out there.
The company has targeted the immigrant workforce because they understand that many may be undocumented and may be afraid to speak up when they're being violated, and when the company is, abusing them and stuff. So, to them, that's a perfect workforce. Workers that'll stay quiet and just do what they're told and, work under any conditions.
Like other food giants in America, Smithfield has aimed for vertical integration, controlling the whole process from farming and slaughtering to packaging. Or in their former CEO Joe Luter's own words, from squeals to meals. By dominating the slaughterhouse business, Smithfield became the main buyer of pigs. As the price paid to farmers fell, many went bankrupt, and others to survive were forced to become contractors to factory farms like Smithfield. For their workers, it's a hard, low-paid job.
Y trabaja uno 12 días y descansa 2. Pues lo que me ha afectado son los ojos y luego pues a veces quiere dar vómito. Eso es todo lo que a mí me ha pasado, no más.
But some small farmers like Paul Sobocinski fought back.
We've seen the Smithfields, the Joe Luters who've been part of the leadership, want to own all the resources, and they wanted to control the market. And they wanted to control about how livestock production was going to be raised, and they wanted to take more of the profits from production agriculture, take the profits the farmers made as independent producers and put them in their pocket. My tipping point, I think, was when I saw hogs go down to $8 a hundredweight in this country, worse than the Depression in the 1930s. And I saw that pain, I saw that happen to farmers, that I knew that we had to fight back, that we had to stand up, or they were just going to roll over and take democracy, our freedom.
Robert Kennedy Jr. filed a court case against Smithfield Foods, alleging that they had broken environmental laws. He obtained an out-of-court settlement in which Smithfield agreed to improve environmental protections at over 270 hog production facilities in North Carolina. In 1998, the American government had fined their packing plant $12.6 million for breaking pollution controls in the Clean Water Act 6,900 times over 20 years. Highly regulated in their own countries and needing to find a new stream of markets to achieve economic growth, in the late 1990s, Smithfield set their sights on the Republic of Poland, a former USSR satellite state recently freed from the yoke of communist rule, where labour, land and former state-owned farms were relatively cheap and regulations poorly enforced. A good launching pad for the EU market. To pursue their strategy of vertical integration, Smithfield bought the former state-owned slaughterhouse, Animax, followed by 21 state farms. In 2006, their Polish president explained what they hoped to gain.
We are in the farming business because we want to make money on it, yeah? And we believe that this has a great future. First of all, we are by far the biggest farmers in Poland. Secondly, we believe that Poland is a great opportunity for let's say, a foothold to get into the European market.
In 2003, Robert Kennedy went to Poland to warn them about the damage caused by corporate factory farming.
In North Carolina today, because of these facilities, you can drive across the state in rural areas and villages and see that the villages are now empty of people. That the hardware stores are closed, the feed stores are closed, the banks are closed, the churches and the schools are now closed, and the rural areas are empty. In fact, they cannot produce a pig cheaper than a traditional family farmer without breaking the law. And I'll tell you one other thing is that they can't raise hogs with this kind of cruelty unless they give them lots of antibiotics, subtherapeutic antibiotics. The United States Department of Agriculture just made a study that said that every one of these facilities puts out 1 billion antibiotic-resistant bacteria every day that crosses the property line and threatens the health of people who live downwind of those facilities and the herds of animals that live downwind of those facilities.
One of Poland's treasures is its relatively unspoilt countryside. Over the last 4 years, I've made many visits to Pomerania to see the impact of giant, intensive factory farming by Polish and foreign pig companies. Get big or get out appears to be the new philosophy, and Smithfield Foods of America is the biggest. I've never seen such an enormous factory in all my life. In fact, the only thing I've seen as big as this is a nuclear power station. The first state farm that Smithfield's Polish company Prima bought in 2001 was Boszkowo, which by 2004 housed 17,000 pigs. My guide, Marek Kreider, of the Polish Animal Welfare Institute, introduced me to one of the local residents. For many years before Smithfield arrived, they'd been complaining about their local groundwater, believing it to be contaminated.
Sam zacząłem chorować, między innymi zacząłem chorować po spożyciu wody.
Could you tell me what specifically is the illnesses that people are getting around here?
No, z tego co ja wiem, no to są to przede wszystkim ze strony przewodu pokarmowego, żołądek, poza tym jakieś zmiany na skórze.
I met a forester in western Pomerania who explained why villagers are complaining about living near two giant Smithfield factory farms.
Małe koło dosyć, nie? Tu już jest blisko. Okay, we'll walk now. Tworzenie i wylewania gnojowicy na pola to odbywa się zwykle już od marca. No i praktycznie to trwa do listopada prawie bez przerwy. Także no, te smrody mamy ciągłe. Jest to takie stopniowe zatruwanie, no bo przecież te gazy, które są w atmosferze, wdychając je codziennie, no to my w codziennym życiu codziennym jesteśmy w jakimś stopniu podtruwani, nie? Tak jak tutaj stojąc i przypuśćmy te smrody, siarkowodór, amoniak, metan, skotar, inne przecież, a poza tym, no a gdzie są drobnoustroje, bakterie?
I spoke to the local doctor who described some of the conditions his vulnerable patients suffered from living near the two factory farms.
Znaczy nowe laski to my mamy co? Proszę pana, mamy nowe laski, tu mamy żeńsko, a tu mamy żabin fermę. I tak, z której strony by tam bez mała wiatr nie zawiał, to tam będą te laski tłuczone. Zaostrzenie kaszlu, katar, zaczerwienienie spojówek, bóle oczu, łzawienie, no tego typu nasilenie dolegliwości kaszlowych, duszności, uczucie braku powietrza.
Podrażnienie, tak?
Podrażnienie oczu, no tak, łzawienie, zaczerwienienie, pieczenie tych oczu, tak. Czasami brak koncentracji, skarżą się na bóle głowy, osłabienie, jakieś, no w ogóle inne zaburzenia, nawet czasami ze strony przewodu pokarmowego.
There's been no government-funded research into whether factory farms in Poland cause health problems for local people. However, research in America shows the dangers of prolonged exposure to such gases.
The first thing to realize when you're talking about the gases that come out of a big confined swine operation is that there's so many volatile gases mixed in with dust and bacteria and antibiotics. And they're all mixed together in a very, very complex mixture of some 300 or even 400 different substances. So that's what one is exposing a neighbor or a family or a child to.
In June 2005, I was shown undercover film of what else was in this open cesspit they call a lagoon.
Watch me fall in. Is there a bigger stick?
I see there, like 4. Take them out.
A former Smithfield farm worker claimed he knew how these piglets ended up in the lagoon.
Właśnie poprzedni kierownik i jego zastępca to najgorsi dwaj ludzie, którzy byli na tej fermie. No to oni sami patrzyli, że my nie możemy im dać rady, żeby ich wyleczyć. One były w kojcach, tam kilkanaście sztuk, było ci kilkadziesiąt sztuk i przebierali. Który słaby był, to bak go za nogi o ziemię i do wózka. I tak chodzili po budynkach i sortowali najsłabsze, najgorsze prosiaki, żeby tam one, wiadomo, i tak nic nie będzie i tak, no to brali i zabijali je po prostu. Nie zdychało ich tak 100, ale zdychało ich ponad 100. No to żeby ten cały nadzorca, co przyjeżdżał, tosik, żeby się nie doczepił, no to były likwidowane. Tak jak mówię, do laguny, do kanału i ślad po nich zaginął, nie? A później się okazywało, że one w lagunie później pływały, tak samo jak było kanałów i to wszystko wpłynęło na lagunę.
Smithfield stated that the dead pigs were from another farm, as their tails were not cut and they had no ear tags. They emphasised that their farms comply with Polish environmental regulations. I was taken to another former state farm, now foreign-owned, which has been converted to a giant hog farm with 20,000 pigs on the fringes of a village.
Znaczy się każdy, kto przyjedzie, to się pyta, jak wy tu mieszkacie?
To ja po chemii tak nie zwracam, jak ja teraz po tych zapachach zwracam.
So, how many pigs are in
W
here?
Gnojowicy jest ich na pewno dużo więcej. Także nie wierzę w to, bo kontrole jako takie tam gdzieś są, ale oni wcześniej informują i oni są w stanie przyszykować się do tej kontroli.
Whenever I visited Poland, people who lived near giant American, Dutch or Polish factory farms were complaining about the authorities' failure to protect them. So in 2006 I asked the Deputy Minister for Agriculture why these factory farms weren't being properly regulated.
Często są próby niedopuszczenia inspektorów na fermę, wykorzystywanie różnego rodzaju ograniczeń, kruczków prawnych. Często nie chce się dopuścić weterynarzy, a oprócz tego są często przypadki ukrywania na fermie, stosowania różnego rodzaju polepszaczy paszy. Bardzo trudno jest złapać na gorącym uczynku tego typu instytucje.
Due to the fact that we are Smithfield and we are coming from a company who have a tradition for farming for many years and have been exposed in the media for doing this for over many years, we have learned lessons and now we are opening for any inspection at any time.
Although I have no evidence that Poland's largest pig producer, Smithfield, has used any tricks, they have broken a variety of regulations in the past. In 2003, a Polish government report showed that all 14 inspected farms had violated environmental, construction, health and veterinary regulations.
As in all companies in the world, we are making mistakes, but we are not. We are correcting the mistakes as soon as we make them.
In 2008, Smithfield said that all directions and disciplinary instructions in the 2003 report were complied with by 2005, and all farms have valid EU permits governing gas and wastewater, and are subject to testing and inspection. One person and no camera? Yeah. Okay, why don't you want the camera there? I'd like her to follow and take a picture of the pigs inside the ventilation shaft. You from there, will you? Yeah, quickly before anybody comes. It was proving impossible to get an authorised picture of conditions inside any of Smithfield's Polish farms. But a broken air vent was an inviting opportunity. These intelligent animals are deprived of exercise, straw bedding, and the rooting that is vital to their happiness. And it stinks. I pity the pigs and the workers.
Co Państwa tak interesuje tutaj?
I think we should skedaddle. Shall I run with that?
Where?
Well, we don't want them to take our camera. Let's go. Let's leave. I wasn't allowed to film inside a farm, but in 2005 I was granted an interview with the Smithfield manager. And I asked him what he thought of complaints from local people of illnesses from toxic smells.
I can understand that smell, but we are not aware about any illness or sicknesses of local people. If this is harmful, probably our employees who work with pigs, they should be dead already.
A year later, a former factory worker told me how he had been affected.
I lekarz orzecznik, który właśnie mnie badał i pytał się, gdzie pracowałem do tej pory, że na fermie trzody chlewnej. I mówi, że po prostu ja to wszystko, co tam, te opary, to wszystko, ja to wdychałem. I płuca moje nie wytrzymały i teraz one się z dnia na dzień się pomniejszają. Mam coraz mniejszy poziom płuc już. I tego ja już nie wyleczę.
The local Dr. Squire explained how neighbours and workers' lungs could be affected.
Płynie powietrze i to jest rura, prawda? Rura. I ona się zwęża, zaciska. I to powoduje tworzenie się wydzieliny patologicznej pod wpływem drażniących gazów. Czyli zamiast mieć takiej rury i taką rurą oddychać, schematycznie to my oddychamy taką. Już nam ciężko wypuścić powietrze, prawda? Czyli to są te objawy. Płucne przy długim stosowaniu, kiedy mamy pęcherzyki płucne następne, one też mogą gdzieś tam obrywać sobie po długiej ekspozycji, a zwłaszcza tych, co mówiliśmy, pracowników fermy.
No generalnie chorują, ale większość to ukrywa, ponieważ boją się utraty pracy. Są to ludzie z wiosek przede wszystkim. No to powoduje przede wszystkim mikroklimat, bardzo duże stężenie siarkowodoru, azotu, różnych substancji szkodliwych po prostu.
Something like 150 of those gases are known to irritate the airways. What people are complaining of, whether it's itchy eyes or sinus symptoms, more depression, mood problems, anxiety or nervousness or lack of sleep. These complaints are consistent with the kinds of complaints among workers in these facilities that are very well documented and are irrefutable.
When I asked Smithfield about the impact of the conditions in their factory farms on their workers' health, they said, "We would never allow any employee to work in an environment that would be harmful to their health and safety. Our farms have computer-controlled ventilation systems that help provide a safe and healthy environment for our employees and our pigs."
Jak w razie kontroli czy coś tam, no to on leczy. My mieliśmy się chować po kątach, karty pościągać. Jakaś komisja przeszła czy coś tam, karty były z powrotem rozwieszane. A jak w razie się pytali, no to my tylko sprzątamy, coś tam, no. A leczy tylko i wyłącznie on, nie my.
Cały czas, jak się robił obchód, wyszukiwało się chorych zwierząt. Się podawało tam cały czas leki się podaje, to jest bardzo duża ilość zwierząt.
In a letter to me, Smithfield said, "No unauthorized person is allowed to attend to the health of the pigs. And this is carried out by their own veterinarians and by government veterinarian inspectors. They also say that they only give antibiotics to help the pig recover and prevent the spread or onset of disease." Although I wasn't allowed to film inside any Smithfield farms, in 2005 a sympathetic guard allowed Compassion in World Farming to film conditions inside the Smithfield farm at Wiskowice.
Number of dead pigs, you know? Some really lame ones in there as well.
In response to this, Smithfield say that their pigs' health and welfare are their top priorities, and their Polish farms either conform or exceed EU regulations. They further stated that the allegations and events described are absolutely false. Locals in Wiskowice told me how they were suffering the effects of living next to the Smithfield factory farm that houses 12,000 pigs right next to the village primary school.
Szkoła jest oddalona od fermy około 150 do 200 metrów i te dzieci często właśnie miały jakieś katary, jakieś łzawienie ucz, jakieś choroby alergiczne nawet.
Jak zaczęły się żniwa, to nie mogliśmy otwierać okien i wychodzić na przerwy. Wszyscy się źle czuli, jak wracali do domu.
Były robione badania gazowe tutaj na fermie, prowadzone przez upoważnioną firmę Atma ze Skórzewa. Te badania, które były prowadzone, zresztą za te badania zapłacił wójt gminy, wykazały w niektórych tych problemach 30-krotne przekroczenie wartości jakie dopuszczają normy.
In 2006, Smithfield's representative responded to this claim.
I'm not aware of such a thing. It is not something that we have been, let's say, getting any proof for that this should be the case. Yeah? We have a regular test of this gas in our facilities, and every time it's been taken, which has not been taken by ourselves, but it's taken by the authorities, it has not been proving the case.
The village's case against the company was thrown out, as it's only a breach in the law if the emissions exceed legal limits over an extended period of time. The villagers could only afford the one test and weren't given access to any others. In 2006, I asked the Minister for the Environment why nothing could be done about the smell.
Sprawa jest dosyć trudna, dlatego że odnośnie zapachów nie ma norm. W związku z tym to jest poza możliwościami jakiejkolwiek kontroli administracyjnej. I tak samo to występuje w Unii. Nie mamy standardów na zapach.
Back in England, I visited Richard Young, a Gloucestershire farmer, who studied the implications of the use of antibiotics in intensive livestock production.
One of the big weaknesses of the system is a heavy dependence on antibiotics and the fact that that causes infections which can spread from animals to humans, such as Salmonella, E. coli, Campylobacter, and even MRSA. And in the Netherlands, for example, where the most research has been undertaken, 40% of their pigs are carrying a strain of MRSA that can pass to humans. It's been spread rapidly on the pig farms because the antibiotics that are being put in the pig feed are actually selecting for it. That means they kill off the other bacteria which might provide some natural competition, but they don't kill off the MRSA because the MRSA is resistant.
As with all other types of MRSA, there are certain risk factors for getting serious disease. So it tends to be the elderly, the people who are immunocompromised, but also healthy humans. If they have the pig strain of MRSA on their skin and then they have a wound, that could become infected and then the MRSA could get into their blood and cause serious disease.
With the research we've already got, we could actually say, stop. Enough's enough. We've got a system here which is actually causing the pigs to be carrying dangerous infections which are going to come home and haunt us. And meat which may appear very cheap is in fact very, very expensive. And in some cases that could be at the cost of our own lives.
Poland's countryside has a natural beauty. It's home to 200 species of birds that are rare or extinct in the rest of Western Europe, including 40,000 pairs of white storks that nest as cherished residents of Polish villages. It has the only sizable virgin temperate forest left in Europe and the last herds of wild bison. Its rivers are still free-flowing and unpolluted, part of a fully functioning aquatic ecosystem. Western Pomerania is a tourist area famous for its crystal clear lakes. However, this is where there is a huge concentration of pig factories.
Tourism is the basic business for people who live here to earn money. We don't need such a companies as, for example, Prima.
A warning of what could happen in Poland comes from North Carolina, once famous for its fishing and World Heritage coastal ecosystem.
Around the late 80s and early 90s, we began to notice changes in these waters. I was a commercial fisherman then, and I started getting sores all over my body and memory loss. And then in 1991, 1 billion fish turned up dead in these waters. There were so many dead fish on one shore, they were burying them with a bulldozer. We didn't know what was going on. And then Dr. Burkholder discovered Pfiesteria in these waters, a one-cell animal that literally killed fish by the millions, hundreds of millions. just to feast on their blood cells. And then the same problem that the fish were experiencing were the similar problems that people were experiencing, the sores. We know that Pfiesteria will eat human blood cells the same as it will fish. There had to be some big new source that was out there putting these nutrients in the water, because the change in our river system was very dramatic and very quick. What we found was a god-awful mess had developed right under our noses, and it had to do with the swine farm.
Prima, owned by Smithfield, has expanded their Boškovo farm to contain 17,000 pigs. In 2004, locals told me what had once happened to children who swam in the nearby lake.
No takie normalnie po prostu takie jako odrzucenie czy coś takiego. Czerwone się robi, bo nic drapie cię i to po prostu...
Red skin, they got red skin.
Nie ma tak jak było powiedzmy nawet 2 lata temu, gdzie się łowiło ryby i było zielsko, tak w tej chwili nie ma. Ryby nie tak. Ona dosłownie dzień leży. Za 2 godziny ona już jest nie do brania. Ona się po prostu rozchodzi.
I know our people are supporting the direction that we are planning and we want to go our development is tourism together with small agriculture. This is the way that people could achieve economical independence.
In Poland, there are 2 million family farms, averaging 20 acres in size. It's one of the last oases of traditional farming in Western Europe.
It works, it's adequate for this number of hectares and for the number of people, and it doesn't use a lot of energy, and it doesn't therefore contribute to the greenhouse effect. And as oil becomes more and more expensive, you'll surely find that this kind of farming is going to be more attractive and more economic for that matter.
Alicia Samler's farm has been in her family for generations.
Nasza produkcja świń nie będzie się opłacała, dlatego że powstawają duże fermy i one produkują bardzo dużo świń. W krótkim czasie mają pasze z różnymi dodatkami, dlatego świnie rosną krótko, nasze rosną pół roku i dlatego nie będzie się opłacać. Tak jak będą ceny spadać coraz niżej, to produkcja w ogóle nie będzie opłacalna. To właśnie się nie podoba, bo duże gospodarstwa mają im więcej hektarów, tym więcej dopłat.
A lot of the European officials are saying that the Polish farmers are too small. They've only got 18 hectares. What's too small about that?
They want to sweep them aside so larger operators can take over, and everything will be eventually owned by the corporations, I think.
And what do you think will happen to Poland as a result of that?
If Poland's family farmers are exterminated, as it were, it will destroy Poland's culture and, as far as that goes, its soul.
We have a vision, sure, for the future of European farming. And we know that in order to be competitive with less subsidy, farms are going to have to be closer to the market and frankly bigger. I mean, in Britain and Denmark, the farms are generally fairly large. In countries like Poland, where the farms are still very small, there is a big restructuring that will have to happen. That is happening because of the type of subsidies we're paying.
So this taxpayer-funded restructuring and modernisation means the end to family farming, which produces good animal husbandry, good quality food, satisfying work, and protects the environment.
Górę i potem tu w tym śrutowniku się mieszalnika i jest swoja pasza. Nie? To znaczy śruty, pszenicy, żyta, zmieszanek różnych. Potem się dodaje czy ziemniaki, czy zielone. W zależności od pory roku, co wytworzymy na tym gospodarstwie.
Unlike Alicia's homegrown food, industrial farming demands an industrial-scale production of animal feed.
You have to
be competitive. And I don't think you can really be competitive on a small farm, producing your local feed in a way your grandfather has been doing, and still being able to produce it in a competitive way to the big companies like ours.
Cargill is one of the world's biggest suppliers of pig feed. One of the main ingredients is soya, and much of this comes from South America, including the Amazon rainforest. In the past, Cargill's operations provoked widespread protest.
Pois isso dá uma tristeza muito grande na gente, por saber que tudo aquilo que a gente gosta de conviver, para dizer até amar é uma palavra muito mais profunda, né? Mas que a gente gosta de conviver está sendo destruído, menos para ajudar um outro povo, mais para dar comida para bicho.
Que este povo ele seja solidário a nós e que dê um basta nesse consumo dos produtos que são oriundos da Amazônia, principalmente soja.
Pressure from their customers in Europe and Greenpeace and these protests made Cargill and other key traders agree not to purchase soya from newly deforested areas in the Amazon. But there is still over 1 million hectares of soya grown in the Amazon, depriving local people of land and poisoning animal and plant life with pesticides. Back in Poland, opponents of industrial farming demonstrated outside a conference to discuss sustainable economic development for new EU member nations. Inside, once more, I heard the thinking behind the shift from local communities to global economies.
What is going to happen in rural areas in Poland? I can tell you that. There is the area of reforming the agricultural activities. And then there is the issue of what do we do with the people that eventually are being set free because agriculture is getting more productive and people will not be able to work there anymore. So what we are trying to do is to develop alternative activities to help the rural areas to become, well, I'm not saying competitive, but to become economically viable.
Ja mam tą satysfakcję na rolnictwie robić. Tylko to jest, że tak nie ma opłacalności, nie? A te hale tu stoją. Zobacz, te hale tu stoją, widzisz tutaj, nie?
To co oni tam robią? They're making parts for cars.
Wow, I suppose that's development. Come on, boys, get off the land and get a job making car parts. Like many, I believed that the end of communism would result in land passing from the state to local ownership. I was wrong.
The State Farm Privatization Act deprived 500,000 farm families of a livelihood. Only about 3% of the families that had worked in those state farms, and there were 500,000 of them, families, were able to buy in to the properties, and the rest of them went to local apparatchiks and other wheeler dealers who had seen a way to get a hold of it. And then, of course, as the yapping of hyenas attracts lions, the multinationals came in to gobble up some more, the Danes and then the Americans. Every apartment building in rural Poland is almost certain to contain some farm families that have been dispossessed and have been living in semi-property ever since.
The pull of the city has always attracted the young. But with the arrival of industrial agriculture, those who want to stay struggle to make a living.
Jak większość mieszkańców tutaj, myślimy o tym, żeby użytkować tą ziemię, ale sami, z korzyścią dla nas, dla innych mieszkańców i produkując przede wszystkim zdrową żywność. Niestety nie mamy takiej możliwości, ponieważ firma Prima sukcesywnie wykupywała, dzierżawi, przepraszam, w cudzysłowie, bo to też nie jest prawdą, wszystkie grunty dookoła tej miejscowości, właściwie w promieniu powiedzmy nawet 20 kilometrów. Nie, my się z tym nie zgadzamy i to jest nie do przyjęcia, bo to są typowe praktyki monopolistyczne.
So what do these people do in this village for work?
No work.
No work.
Unemployment is the biggest problem. First is unemployment, the second is Prima.
To try to understand how we arrived at such a destructive farming system, I spoke to economist Bernard Lietaer.
In most economic decisions, the assumption is that there's a given. And therefore you arrive that the only possibility is competitive in a global economy And anything that doesn't fit in that model is ready for the garbage can. There's a lot of people involved that will end up in the garbage can. And I think we should ask the question whether that's what we want.
Czyli te ceny nagle spadły, no żywiec,
do tego stopnia, że nikt krowie nie chowa ani świnie, a pole stoi utłokiem. Takie teraz rząd. To jeszcze my, to jeszcze, ale teraz te nasze dzieci, to nie wiem co będzie.
What will happen without children?
Roboty nie ma nigdzie,
no jobs.
ani nic. Wszystko bez robocie i te dzieci chodzą, muszą kraść. No, wszystko chodzi, roboty nie ma nigdzie. Zapowiada się taka bieda, że będzie złodziej na złodziejuje.
So it seems that economic development is not being determined by the needs of people, but by the need for companies to grow and compete in the global market. And believe it or not, you and I are helping to fund this. The European Bank for Reconstruction and Development, which is funded by governments, lent Smithfield $25 million to facilitate another $75 million from private banks.
Smithfield benefited from a $100 million loan that was organized by the European Bank for Reconstruction Development. This is taxpayers' money that's being applied to the expansion of Smithfield.
Because we have governments as shareholders of the bank, the market is very confident that we will always exist. We are not driven only by financial profit, but because we are driven by trying to set the way, basically trying to have a catalyst effect, if you want to, and in that way, bring along with us then the private banks.
So the European Bank for Reconstruction and Development has government officials from 60 countries on its board. So it sets the development pattern. But for who? For you and I, the electorate, the consumer? Or for giant corporations and the private banks that invest in them?
I moim zdaniem to jest również przejaw pewnej nieuczciwej konkurencji w stosunkach międzynarodowych. Polscy rolnicy produkujący żywność znacznie wyższej jakości, lepsze, mają o wiele większe problemy i trudności z dostępem do łatwych, tanich kredytów na rozwój swoich gospodarstw, czyli tu konkurencja nie jest równoprawna. Śmiem twierdzić, że ta konkurencja jest konkurencją zaburzoną.
Polish agriculture at the moment is not productive enough. Small farms are too small to be competitive. I think Poland wants and will have to be competitive on the world market, and for that they will have to actually continue improving productivity. That will be over time, at the expense of smaller farms.
The whole mission of the European Bank has been to industrialize Central and Eastern European agriculture. No question about that, and that has the effect of pushing out small farmers and independent farmers, and also the effect of opening it up to take over by foreign corporations.
I would compare the money system as a ring that we put through our nose, and it leads us where it wants to go. We forgot that we created the ring and that we put it there. The financial institutions are running the show. The governments are all indebted to them. In the United States, 1/3 of all contributions to political campaigns are done by the financial institutions. So there's no chance that they will change the rules of the game.
Back in 2003, Robert Kennedy had tried to change the rules of the game when he appealed to Poland's Senate.
20 years ago, there were 27,500 independent hog farmers in the state of North Carolina. Today, they've been completely replaced by 2,200 hog factories, 1,600 of them either owned or operated by Smithfield Foods. We produced in our country more pigs in 1918 than we do today. And every factory that's built gets rid of 10 traditional family farmers and replaces those jobs with 2 or 3 minimum wage jobs to workers who work in the plants.
My nie mamy żadnego wpływu na to, że ta firma nam szkodzi. Nawet na dobrą sprawę nie mamy gdzie się poskarżyć, że ta firma robi nam krzywdę. No, a to wynika tylko z tego, że ta firma jest duża, że jest ogromna. Gdyby ona była mniejsza, pewnie jej wpływy byłyby mniejsze. Właśnie to bardzo dobrze to powiedział. To jest ta ogromna korporacja, która gdzieś tam przyjechała. Dla nas to jest dosłownie, to jest inwazja. No. To jest pająk, który siedzi na całej kuli ziemskiej. widać w jaki sposób, czym jest ta globalizacja. To jest coś ogromnego, które wysysa soki z tej ziemi, z ludzi. To jest taki ogromny pająk, pasożyt taki, który żeruje tutaj na nas.
Okay, bye bye then.
You shouldn't show the camera because it's not allowed, you know?
The foreign retailers came to Poland in the 90s, and it was their needs for industrial-produced pork that has led to the growth of factory-farmed meat. Outside, a disgruntled consumer told me what he thought about their pork products.
Nie ma ani pieprznego, ani solnego, takiego nic w smaku. Jakby wszystko było na czymś robione.
It looks like full of chemicals.
Substancje te chemikalia.
Without taste.
Despite the disappearance of many farmers' markets and small shops, some are clinging on.
Proszę bardzo.
Klienci moi zapewniają mnie, że mięso moje jest bardzo dobre i w supermarkecie kupili raz czy dwa i skończyli już kupowanie z mięsem, bo mówią, że to niesmaczne, gumiaste mięso.
Here in Poland, that people prefer meat from such a small farms. People know that I have to apologize for the word that I will use, but people knows that the meat from pig factories is bullshit. It's horrible what's Prima doing, because it's abnormal.
No moja przyszłość już z góry będzie stracona. Nie mam szans ich przebić cenowo, nie mam szans w ogóle, nie za duże są. Zjedzą nas po prostu.
Although Smithfield claims to have improved its farming practices today, it's too late for Poland's small-scale independent farmers, thousands of whom took to the streets of Warsaw in 2008.
Będziemy żądali zamknięcia tych dużych ferm w Polsce, no i tego dzikiego importu.
Oczywiście dzisiaj największym problemem w produkcji trzody chlewnej jest największa korporacja na świecie, jaką jest Smithfield Foods, który przejął polski Animex w roku 99.
30% niżej cen kosztów produkcji dostajemy teraz. Czyli dokładamy z własnych kieszeni, żeby sprzedać, żeby utrzymać nasze rodziny, to musimy, nie wiem skąd, teraz musimy chyba jechać do Anglii albo do Irlandii, zarabiać, wszystko pozamykać.
Nie wiem, czy pójdę na emeryturę, czy się powieszę, czy co zrobię, czy wyjadę.
So-called cheap meat from factory farms has flooded every market in the EU. And Smithfield has ambitious distribution plans for the UK. On its web page, using a bit of artistic license with a pig on grass, their aim is to dominate, or in their words, to be the preferred supplier to the UK retail trade and food service industry. To you and me, that's restaurants, schools, prisons, hospitals, etc. So in 2008, I went to America to check out what Britain's supermarkets could look like.
Smithfield, loads and loads and loads of Smithfield food dominating the pork section.
This is the Walmartization and commoditization of every product. Smithfield is producing these uniform cuts, which is what, Walmart wants it to do. And in the meantime, they're homogenizing and they're diminishing quality of life for everybody in this country. And I don't think it's good for America. It's not good for our food supply. It's not good for our food security.
Okay, so I'm just off to Smithfield to interview Dennis Tracy, who's their environmental waller, an attorney. Terrifying. They must absolutely loathe me, but I'm sure they'll be extremely polite, and they will reject every single thing that I say. I wasn't the only one nervous. Smithfield had their own crew to film the interview.
Hi, Dennis Tracy. How are you? Welcome to Smithfield. I really appreciate you all coming here and talking to us. I mean, I know that you may not agree with what we do, but we really take pride in what we think we're doing, and I appreciate you giving us the shot to at least talk to you about it.
If you've got 10 million pigs. And the research that I did, and you could question this, but that they defecate 10 times more than a human being. You've got the equivalent of 100 million people defecating every day in a very small area. Surely we've got to understand that there's going to be a hell of a lot of people who are suffering from the stench, and whose fishing and whose swimming in the rivers is going to be jeopardized by that system.
The system is operated in a way that is not supposed to allow that. As far as things running off into the water, if that happens, that's against the law and it's wrong. Over-applying this material to the field is against the law. Having it drift onto somebody's property is against the law. We go out of our way and go to extraordinary lengths to make sure that we have a system in place that doesn't allow that. I don't know how it was 20 years ago or even 15 years ago, but I know how it is today.
You know, there's two reasons why Smithfield's performance is better. One is because they got sued and they had to do some reforms. But more importantly, there's been a drought since 2003. And because of that drought has covered up a lot of the problems in the industry. And those problems are going to come back with a vengeance as soon as it starts raining again.
We spent 10 years in North Carolina researching new technologies that would replace lagoons and spray fields. And it's been done. So is the industry moving to build new farms or replace existing lagoons with this new technology? No. Instead of doing that, they're going other places. And instead of going there with this new technology that's been proven to be workable in North Carolina to replace lagoons and spray fields, what do they build? More lagoons and spray fields.
If you've got a rule here which says that you can't build any more factory farms, with this lagoon and spray field system, why are you taking this system to Poland?
These systems are being taken because they work, and they work well. Is the system perfect? Shouldn't we have another system? Smithfield, back in Governor Easley, when he was Attorney General, reached an agreement with him that we would fund research to see if something was out there. And that research went on for 4 or 5 years. We paid for it to look at alternative systems. And as it turns out, none came out of that particular exercise that were economically feasible to do.
My feeling is if the big industrial producers of pigs like Smithfield Foods, Goldsboro Milling, Premium Standard, there's a whole bunch of them. I think Smithfield's the largest. But if all of these big guys who have industrialized this practice were made to pay the full cost of environmental protection and disposing of their waste, any family farmer in America, any family farmer in this world, I think, could outcompete them at the marketplace.
You say that it's a natural progression that 20,000 independent farmers should go. Is it not related to the fact that you opened an enormous slaughterhouse and therefore could decide who you buy your pigs from?
Well, you can argue that, certainly. I think the common misconception that a lot of folks have is that companies like Smithfield go into our conference room and have a big discussion about how we're going to dominate the market and run people out of business and then sell our wares to the marketplace, and that just isn't so. We are responding to what our customers ask for, which is large quantities of meat products in a very short period of time, and they want it. And they want it in a particular cut, in a particular fashion.
You're talking about the retail outlets. That's your customer.
Yes, not the consumer. No. I'm talking about the customer, either the grocery store or the restaurant, whoever it may be.
The destruction of the small farm wasn't casual. It's systematic. It is the intention. It's the way that they make money. It's the design of this industry. Once a company owns both the slaughterhouse and some of the farms, it destroys the capacity of the farmers to organize and to form those cooperatives. And ultimately, it's the end of the independence of farmers. And they're no longer what we call farmers in this country. They're what they call serfs in Europe. They are no longer in control of their own lives, their own economic decisions. There's no local sovereignty. The decisions, all of the critical decisions in their lives are being made by the CEO of a corporation or the managers of a corporation.
Which would you prefer to be, a small farmer or an employee?
Small farmer.
Why?
Well, you can do it like you want to then. And then you're in control. But the way it is now, Smithfield's in control. See, Smithfield is like under control. But we about like a slave, and they about like a slave master, so many words. Because they're in control. Like I say, they know it got to work. And so they can do us by any kind of way. You know, they can treat us bad and stuff like that. And we got to put up with a lot of stuff because we need a job so bad.
You said that you're not trying to interfere with politics. And yet, you seem to give a lot of money to politicians who support your position. And they've changed the law to suit the pig industry's position.
Political contributions are not common. They are the way of life in American government. It's part of the American system, which is know your representative, make sure your representative knows not only you and your family, but your company and your business, so that as they make decisions, they're aware of the impact of the decisions they're making may have on that company or that community or that person. I think it would be, if you ask any politician here whether they have been purchased by Smithfield Foods, their answer would be no.
The amount of money which you can offer to these politicians, would you not say in any way it distorts, corrupts the political process?
The system that you describe is the American system. It may not be identical to yours. I am not about to suggest, nor do I believe, that the United States government system is corrupt. It's been that way for 200 years. It's just different. The system is designed, much like yours, to encourage argumentation and debate about issues. And when you have that, that's a very good thing.
You don't think that itself corrupts the system?
No. It's the system, it's the American system.
It's a battle about who's going to control our resources. Are the resources of the land going to be controlled by a kind of corporate feudal system, or are they going to be controlled by the people? Teddy Roosevelt, who was a Republican, said that America would never be destroyed by a foreign enemy, but he warned that our political institutions would be subverted by malefactors of great wealth who would steal them from within. Abraham Lincoln, the greatest Republican in American history, said during the height of the Civil War, I have the South in front of me, and I have the bankers behind me. And for my country, I fear the bankers more. And Franklin Roosevelt said during World War II that the domination of government by corporate power is, quote, the essence of fascism.
The arrival of corporate power in agriculture in the UK has pushed farmers off the land and onto the streets. In 2008, pig farmers from across the country besieged Downing Street.
We already know in this country we've lost 40% of the herd in the last 10 years. And I think if this continues and we don't get support, particularly from the supermarkets, then we're going to see another drop of equal proportions, maybe more. As our production's gone down, imports have gone up. And we know from all the work that we've done that 70% of those imports would be illegal to produce in the UK on the grounds of animal welfare.
Over half the pig meat sold in Britain now comes from abroad. So I went in search of Smithfield products at my local supermarket.
Try this one. Look, Peck. Is that a brand? Peck, and it's Smithfield Food Limited, Norwich.
But it's not just tinned meat. Look at this boast on the Smithfield website. If you've ever had Spanish chorizo, Polish wajewska or French saucy sauce sliced at the deli counter, it might well have come from a Smithfield company in Europe. If you've ever bought fresh pork, beef or poultry from a supermarket, for instance, we may well have supplied it. These chops are from Poland, and Smithfield told me they supply Tesco's own brand. But when I rang Tesco's to ask which company had supplied their pork, they said it was confidential information. Subsequently, Tesco assured me that their own brand fresh pork imports were raised to UK welfare standards. But this assurance does not apply to the other branded processed pig meat that they also sell. These are the Smithfield processed pig meat labels from an assortment of UK supermarkets from goodness knows what country. In fact, many well-known brand names use pig meat from intensive factory farm systems from all over the EU. By not being specific on the label about where the meat comes from, it's possible to source from outside the UK and benefit from cheaper labour and lower animal welfare regulations. I want to support our independent farmers, their traditional skills and our rural communities. The problem is it's very hard to tell from the label where something has come from. Don't think this circle with UK EC means a pig raised in the UK. It means it was processed or packed in the UK. If you want to support our farmers, look for a label which has the British Quality Standard mark. And if you buy pork with the Freedom Foods label, the pigs have straw. But better still, look for free range, organic or outdoor on the label. Though the welfare laws in the UK aren't strict enough, it is illegal to keep the mother in a stall when she's pregnant. While in most other EU countries, this practice is legal for the next 5 years. The extra costs of British higher animal welfare standards are crippling our farmers today.
How can they possibly sanction pork to come into this country reared on lesser welfare standards than they force us to do? How can that be right?
The consumer has to be very careful what they're buying. If they want good quality, high welfare, friendly produced meat and other products, they have got to choose British.
To compete with cheap imports, some UK farmers have intensified their methods, and many of our factory farms are now owned by foreign multinationals. Small-scale independent farmers who favour quality over quantity are struggling.
The supermarkets won't take our pigs because we're not in any of the recognised assurance schemes, and we won't go in them because the standards are far too low, basically. We were in for a year and it didn't do us any benefit, so we came out again.
What would you say was the answer to keeping more farmers in business in this country?
It's a bit radical, but I thought about it long and hard a few years ago, and I thought you shouldn't allow imports in any less money than the price of British pigs. And if the price of British pigs went up to £1.20 a kilo, then the import should be £1.20 a kilo. Then we'd be competing on a level playing field.
At the Oxford Farming Conference, I caught up with the leader of the opposition party, David Cameron, who seems to think that it's possible to protect our farmers.
Open, global, free trading economy. That's what Britain has always been. But it should be on the basis of rules. And I made the particular point about animal welfare, that just as we don't accept cars that aren't meeting our emission standards, so we shouldn't accept food that doesn't meet welfare standards.
Is it possible for you to do that?
Not really, because of course within the EU we're a single market. I can understand that, but it's not going to work. There are of course some imports that don't meet the same kind of standards, but you're back to consumer choice, consumer labelling and consumer information. When it comes to quality and welfare standards, which are particularly important to me, UK farmers are giving a world lead on this. These are the kind of issues that people get quite worked up about and care about. So if they care about them, then buy the product.
We all want to buy cheap food. But if on the label of the cheap meat it said that it had destroyed rural livelihoods, that it had polluted the environment, and that it was of a poor quality, would we still want to buy it? Or would we seek out farmers who'd produced in a more natural, healthy and humane way, and therefore support farmers' markets and small butchers?
The consumer ultimately has the power. They can say whether they buy cheap pork, that they don't care where it's produced or how it's produced or the quality of it. Ultimately, if the consumer refuses to buy that and prefers to buy meat which is a high welfare standard, produced in an environmentally sensitive way, then we'll be onto a winner, you know.
There's no single magic bullet for solving the great problem that we face now. You have to use all of the tools of activism that Martin Luther King talked about, which is litigation, legislation, and agitation. Part of the puzzle is that people buy locally. That is a very potent form of activism, to say to the Walmarts of the world, we're not going to buy from you. We're going to buy in the local farmers market. You also need to sue the polluters. You need to demand your government enforce the law against them. You need to pass legislation that makes it very clear that they can't come into your communities and displace, you know, the traditions and the values that your country holds dear. And all of us, you know, we had an American Revolution in this country to create democracy. We need a new American Revolution in this country now to fight against the corporate feudalism that we are now dealing with that is embodied so much by this industry, that is eroding everything and subverting everything that we care about in our democracy.